we're going to go over what might be the dumbest fitness trend for athletes, and we're going to start right now. Okay, so when we're looking at charlatans in the fitness community, we typically will see things similar to what you're about to see on screen, which will be basing everything in primal tenets, in human foundations, and then basing everything around these abstract principles and making things up like fascia training. We're training your fascia. But when you do sprints and hurdle hops and you throw an implement or you wrestle, you're not training your fascia. So it's interesting because typically the fear mongering, which is what I'm sort of doing right now because it pisses me off that people still follow this stuff, and the fact that it's rooted in these ancestral tenets or human foundations, become this very hard line, like this is the way it has to go. And then there's no abstract measurements. There's no guideline for success. There's, you can look at specific patterns or specific pictures on a screen, right? And you'll see that in these specific pictures on the screen, you'll see these random super thin individuals with lines and arrows and all these things on top of the screen, and you really don't even see what they're talking about. Or you might see an athlete who was 12 years old and they were growing and they changed their posture because they started to become more active as they got older, and they went from 12 to 15 years old. And so what we're looking at in this specific video is we're actually going to break down functional patterns. And I'm going to show you a couple different factors here, and I'm going to show you a couple different videos where functional patterns and the individual behind functional patterns. And like, dude, I'll be honest, some of the movements, they're not bad. But my experience with functional patterns is interesting. One, being blocked by Naudi a long time ago, like 2018, 2019. Two, training multiple people who actually did train with Kyle Dake. And Kyle Dake, we will react to one of his videos. And then he ended up leaving functional patterns. And what's interesting here is that I trained a two-time world bronze medalist, Nick Gwizdowski, in freestyle wrestling. And he used to talk about how Naudi would come into the Olympic Training Center, and he'd have his like super expensive red camera, $20,000-$30,000 camera to film super dramatic stuff. And he was just like, it had to be this way or there's no way, right? And it's interesting because oftentimes with people who are cultish, that you see that they don't have any type of measurements that are clear. Like, hey, if you increase your broad jump, or you increase your power output on a plate, or you run a faster 40, or you bench press more, or you have a higher vertical jump, or you can take, you have a higher VO2 max, or your sprint speed over a 5K was higher, your average speed was higher, whatever it is, like very clear metrics. They don't have them. They don't ever come up with hard line, clear cut data that will show they're better, their training is better, that's drastically improved over another form of training. And so some of my personal experience in the freestyle wrestling realm was that I had an individual who actually wrestled for another country, and he wrestled in Cornell, but he had graduated. He went to another university and then went up there to wrestle. He was a heavyweight, and he would do functional patterns. And it was ironic because he was also an individual who told me that he thought that Liver King was clean. And it's funny because sometimes I find in these sports, a lot of times combat sports, individuals will buy full in hook, line, sinker, everything that you could ever imagine. They believe 100% on these individuals. They're all in. And you'll see videos of Naudi like spinning water around and it just twists. He's like, look, I told you, everything's a rotation. And it's like, you just shook water. That's all you did. It comes back to this interesting aspect of really what the human foundation is I made a really big, unique apparatus that I want you to buy off of me. And I have courses and it's cool. Like, dude, he's trying to make money. I applaud him for that. He's trying to make money financially. He's trying to be successful. And I want to pause this because I have one more thing to say here, is that from a functional perspective, he's not the most functional looking individual. And it's something that I even brought up. He and Mike Israetel were spatting back and forth. And I was like, okay, functional to me would be like, let's have a functional patterns person do BJJ against Mike, against Dr. Mike, who's more functional. Like, that's like a really applied thing. Like, let's go BJJ match. Who wins? Who wins? A bodybuilder who practices BJJ or a functional patterns person? Like, that's the overarching thought process is constantly coming back is, what is functional? Is Joe Kovacs, who can throw a shot put 77 feet and he rotates and spins all the time, but he can back squat 800 pounds. According to functional patterns, deadlift is fake strength. So Joe's technically not that strong, but he's also rotating. So isn't he training his fascia when he's rotating in his shot put technique? Where's the definition here? So it's an interesting thing. And I think the problem I have is like, not that I despise the thought process of moving differently, because I am a proponent of that. It's the all out, you're stupid if you don't do this, which he's backed away from that. He's not as bad as he used to be, but it's also like, this is the holy grail. This is the secret sauce. And it's the secret sauce. It's the same concept of Liver King. It's the same concept of some of these other fringe type of Goda. Hey, real quick, guys, if you're looking to save yourselves from the functional patterns and you actually want to be more functional because you want to apply more force to your specific sport, click the first link in the description. Functional training is about developing more force that then gets carried over to your sport practice. That is functionality, and that's exactly what we do inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. Again, it's the first link in the description. You can head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength today. You'll get 7 free days of training, and then you can sign up to become more of a savage to dominate all the functional pattern guys. Now, let's get back to reacting to Naudi. And it reminds me of these sects, these religious sects, 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 religious sects that you believe, and if you don't believe, you get booted out of the church. If you're Amish, you're all in, and if you go on Rumspringa and you don't come back, we pretend that you don't exist. And there's a lot of faiths like that it's like you're either all in or we kick you out and you get banned. And Naudi does this in some of his communities. Like, you get legitimately banned from communicating. So let's look at some of the stuff.
The right arm a little forward, bend the left arm a little. There you go. There you go. Forward. Whip the hips. There you go.
Whip the hips.
Right, beautiful. The less head movement, you start doing it too. I did the head movement. Yeah.
So I think this might be the functional patterns movement, or and this is the one thing that I would always have. The athlete that I was working with, he would contact me. This is a wrestler. I trained him online. Actually started training him because of Gwiz, and he would send me some of the videos of what he was doing prior to me working with him. Dude couldn't front squat. Dude would goblet squat. His back would hurt. He'd do walking lunges with a Zercher position. His back would hurt. And he would show me these exercises similar to this, but he genuinely couldn't do a power clean without his wrists, his shoulders, and his back hurting. And I would be like, yo, dude, Mo, like, if this is so functional, why aren't you able to just do everything? Like, you should be able to function. Your pattern should be so dialed in to doing this. And it's the same thing with like Seedman that I've talked about in the past. Like, if I can come out of nowhere as a schlub athlete and be able to do these exercises with more weight and more control, I can do this stuff. I'm not, Kyle Dake is a way better athlete than me, but like, when I would talk to Mo, I'd be like, dude, you can't do like simple movements without pain. So it hasn't worked. I thought it's supposed to alleviate all of your stress and discomfort. And the interesting part is like, look, I like doing like backward rolls. I like doing jumps. I like doing rotating jumps. I love this stuff. I love putting it into training. We train weightlifters. We train throwers. We train guys in the NFL. We have 7 throwers going to the world championships this year. Like, rotational movement and rotational force is something that we are dialed in on. So like a lot of these patterns I like, but nothing trumps fundamental strength. Nothing trumps it. And so if we're looking at specific movement patterns, and I'm telling you that I can increase your vert by increasing your front squat, and then we can do a backward roll into a med ball slam with greater force because your front squat goes up and your vert goes up and your clean goes up, we're going to do it. We're going to do it all. We're going to do absolutely everything to make you as explosive as possible. And I think that the consistent, like, I'm not going to buy into you, or I'm going to buy into the blind belief that there's one end all holy grail to training is just something that I struggle with. So there's Kyle doing power snatches. He's doing rope. So this is actually one interesting thing. I remember when this video came out is that some of the more traditional wrestling strength guys were like, well, it's interesting because he was doing snatches, he's doing cleans, he's doing pull-ups, he's doing rope climbs. So Kyle Dake was developed doing fundamental lifts, doing fundamental movements. He probably was pushed a little too hard because he also wrestled all the time. He's a 4-time NCAA champ, probably the second best NCAA collegiate wrestler in the history of the sport. He was built off of those movements: snatch, power clean, front squat, back squat, whatever. They just showed rope climbs, pull-ups. And then Naudi comes in and says, no, I'll resolve your issues. It's not that you were wrestling too much, or it's not that we were pushing you too much in the weight room with your fundamental lifts. It's that you aren't functional. So we're going to get you to do all these other things, but then we're going to promote you. We're going to ride the back of your success in the sport, even though you were built off the fundamental movements. And I think that's my issue. And I'm pretty sure if I could be wrong with this one.
Physical therapy, and
I thought I heard that there was like a fallout with Kyle Dake, maybe after Tokyo.
And he's evolving. I need to evolve too, and I need to be on the cutting edge. So I need to go out there. We were able to make it work a couple months later, and ever since then, my body's just been. I feel like I'm kind of floating around, not just stomping around. And I just notice things more about myself, especially when I wrestle.
So one thing with working with South Dakota State's wrestling team is like we're with a team that they're essentially a mid-major in a Power 5 conference, Power 4 conference. And one of the things with South Dakota State is like, I want to measure their vert because I want them to feel like they're floating. I want to measure their broad jump. I want to measure, what's their 7-minute assault bike time. Those are measurable takeaways. Those are clear, defined takeaways that you can't argue. Like, I want to feel like I'm floating. I want to feel like I can rotate faster. Quantify the number. Quantify it, because guess what? When you're in the match, and we know that there's very specific types of force that will carry over. If all technique is equal and all endurance is equal, if I can take a better, more explosive double leg takedown than you, if our technique's the same and our endurance is the same, but I'm more explosive than you because I have a better vertical, I'm going to finish the takedown. Like, that's literally how things work. And so I think what's interesting here is like, do I discount dynamic work that's rotational? Absolutely not, because that's the sport I'm in. That's a lot of the stuff that we do. Do I discount the way of
T-spine at the bottom, T-spine at the bottom, hold for 14 reps. Calculate back.
Well, it's like Jeremy Stevens. Okay, he was good. So we're going to use all these guys. Like, these are good fighters, great fighter, right? But then where did they do with Jeremy Stevens after he was done in the UFC and he wasn't good anymore? Was it Jeremy Stevens' fault that he wasn't good anymore, or was it the fact that he, functional patterns didn't really succeed in developing his career later on?
There you go. That's what I want you to do. Fantastic. Keep going. Come on. 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good.
I wonder how Naudi counts reps. Like, how does he understand reps? And dude, here's this is the other annoying part. It's like, liar. I don't know.
120 reps. Good. Get that rotation turn. Boom, rotate that thoracic right here. Throw that right hand over. Boom, rotate. There you go. Rotate. There you go. That's
Training for humans. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so side med ball throws. That's a pivotal part. Looks like he's doing a glide. Looks like he's gliding and throwing a shot. That's interesting. So maybe that's the issue with us, is that because our program is so rooted. Ooh, let's go. Measure his back, measure his spine, make sure his ribs not flaring out.
keep on, baby. Come on. Hips under. Open those ribs up. There you go.
We're so rooted in throwing and rotation that maybe that's the advantage that we have. We're trained for human training and human ancestral transcendence. Human ancestral transcendence brought to you by Peak Strength. All you have to do is download Peak Strength. It's free for a week, and then it's a lot cheaper than functional patterns, and you're actually going to see quantifiable results. You'll see your clean go up, your squat go up. There's numbers that you'll associate with success, not abstract terms that you can't understand and you can't get fooled by somebody. I'm trying to take his coaching cues. It's like I get his cues, but I'm trying to figure out why. But I'm also a buffoon, so that's my take, is that I'm a buffoon and I can't comprehend what he's actually trying to do here. I think that's my overarching thought process. Is it's like they'll go through what is functional, right? Like literally, if you take that question, what is functional? To me, functionality is being able to perform movements in a sports setting that you can perform and continuously get better at that skill. So you have to be able to practice the skill. The skill of the sport will get you better at the sport. But then also understand that functionality is being able to do lifts and exercises and movements and patterns like hurdle hops, sprints, side jumps, rotational jumps, side medicine ball throws, bench press, deadlifts, cleans, snatches, rope climbs, sled pulls that transfer over to executing the sport skill better. So it's like, if I can do more force, if I get more forceful here and my skill gets executed with more force here, that means these movements are functional for this. That's all it is. That's literally what functional means, okay? You have a sports skill, you execute the sports skill, and if I get stronger at specific lifts based off of research, based off of sport coaches, and based off of your own intuition or anecdotal evidence inside of your gym, and you see that these exercises make these skills more forceful, that becomes functional. So going back to the Joe Kovacs analogy, Joe Kovacs can squat 800 pounds for sets of 4. And he rotates. He has thoracic rotation. He has phenomenal thoracic rotation. He throws 77 plus feet. So his lifts become more functional. Now, if there's issues in a joint because of scar tissue or because of an injury or because of whatever it might be, and we have to do some type of manipulation to release that joint, that's not the same as training. That's not the same as being functional. And that's the big differential that we all have to make, at least in my opinion. So I wanted to put that out there. Functional patterns, good exercises here and there. Yeah, for sure. Like, it's fun to do here and there. But as far as like the end all be all difference, I've worked with, the other thing that's interesting is in the beginning of this video, when I showed the human foundations or human fundamentals, right? The human movements that we have to do. I have another buddy that did functional patterns, and he was always the thinner, skinnier guy. He would always talk about, well, you're just lifting, you're getting too big, and you're not being functional. He'd always hurt his elbows. He'd always hurt his shoulders. He would do a lot of rock climbing, and he'd get a lot of issues in his hands, and he'd always come back and be like, hey, do you have any exercises that I can do for my rear delt? Do you have any exercises I could do for my shoulder? Do you have any exercises I can do for my knee? It's like, dude, who's the functional person here? I know I might be doing too much hypertrophy training, but at the end of the day, I can still have I'm 41 and a half years old, and I have a 31-inch vertical weighing 220. Like, is that functional? Sure. So just beware of snake oil salesmen, please. Unless something is very, very clearly far and away better. Just beware of that. Head over to peakstrength.app. Save yourself from functional patterns. Download our strength training app today. It's the first link in the description. If you guys like content like this, click on this card right here. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.